Welcome to Chalk Talk Nationals Edition. I'm Chris Love, and I'm here at the site of the 2012 ICSA Nationals, Lake Travis in Austin, Texas.
And I'm Jane Mackey, still here in New York, but I will be joining you in Texas this weekend, Chris.
Well, behind me, you've got the opening races of the 2012 Sperry Top-Sider ICSA Women's Semifinals beginning today. But over the next 10 days, you're going to enjoy, as viewers, unprecedented live coverage of the 2012 championship presented by McLaren. The University of Texas is on the dock streaming text and photo updates right now. I will be on site over the next 6 days, bringing you 4 days of highlight videos alongside the text and photo updates, followed by 2 days of streaming video for the ICSA APS Team Race National Championship. That's Monday and Tuesday. And in addition, Jane and I will be bringing you Nationals episodes of Chalk Talk after each and every championship.
Now, Chris, we can't forget about what I have been harping on about as well as you for the last 10 or so episodes, is the US Sailing College membership promotion.
That's right, Jane. Sperry Top-Sider offering to outfit an entire team, whoever signs up the most US Sailing College members, by the start of Nationals. But, you know, new information here, I just found out it's actually going to be, the deadline is the start of co-ed Nationals. So that means that you all have one extra week, June 6th, the final deadline to sign up for your US Sailing College membership, only $95, ussailing.org/college. Well, let's jump right into it. We begin with the semifinals. The 18 teams have the next day and a half to work themselves into the top half of the fleet or face the end of the season. Tomorrow at noon, if 8 races have been completed in each division, the regatta ends. The top 9 teams move on to face the top 9 who qualified directly from their district championships. If they haven't finished 8 races, they'll continue racing until 5 p.m. and then it's definitely over. Time to move on to finals. So today we've got a hot and windy weather and forecast in for this afternoon, so we're seeing a good start to the regatta. I think we might just have this thing wrapped up by noon tomorrow.
Chris, lake sailing is always a bit tricky for those who don't do it every day, or at least that's how I always felt. You get all the wind coming over land and funny things going on with different sort of shapes of shores and that sort of thing, so it always makes it interesting. And I know, based on what we've been talking about, you said that it's not your typical lake venue. It could be a little bit more like an open sea venue. So let's turn to someone from UT to get a little bit more of that local knowledge on what the conditions in the venue are going to provide today and for this weekend.
So Lake Travis is fairly flat. We don't have a lot of chop, and so it gets really important to play the shifts. With our lake being lower as it is right now, as you can see, the geographic features around you get more pronounced, and it's more important to make sure you're playing all those shifts.
And so right now we've got a direction, what is it, southeast or so? Mm-hmm. Is this your predominant breeze direction? Do you have a predominant breeze direction?
It's usually out of the north or the south and flows pretty well. Lake Travis is actually a dammed off part of the Colorado River. And so when it comes out of the north or south, it's usually pretty steady. It's if it switches around to the east or the west too much that it gets really crazy.
And so this time of year, are we thinking it's going to be pretty windy this week?
Hopefully. A lot of springs, like a light wind practice for us, will end up being 12 knots. And this year's kind of been about the same.
All right. Well, thanks so much, and good luck this week running Nationals.
Thank you, and sailing.
And sailing.
Thanks.
And you know, every year we ask the question, would you prefer to have qualified directly to finals and not have to sail semis, or would you like to have that experience in the bank going into finals, sailing 2 days of semifinals, which, you know, if you're good enough, is really just practice for the championship? And I think the answer really varies from year to year. Jane, you know, the first year that they did this was the year you won Nationals in San Francisco. So what did you think then?
Well, Chris, in my last year in college, we qualified straight through to Nationals. So we didn't actually sail in the semis. But in saying that, I did miss my graduation, left my parents at Yale to pick up my hat or whatever you get, and flew out to San Fran to make sure that I was there on ground, on site, to watch and take up every little bit of information that I could, every little piece of insight, watching the other teams in the semifinals. But you know what? they sailed in a completely different area to the whole time we raced at the regatta. So I really feel like it was a bit of a waste of time for those that were sailing. Just made them probably a bit more tired. Maybe good to stretch your legs and get a little bit of the anxiety out of your system, but I think it was a little bit more of a practice for the race committee than anything. One other thing that I wanted to mention though is I really do think, and this is my personal opinion, I wish that that the women's could have a similar setup to how the co-ed do it and have that 18 boat semi-finals earlier so that they can qualify, get that all done, and then have 3 days for nationals. You train all year and all of your 4 years by the time you're a senior for this one regatta, and it's 2 days. It just doesn't seem like enough. But again, that's just me.
Fair enough, fair enough. I think that question is constantly on the table for ICSA, and you know, they've been developing the system over the years. I'm sure it will continue to develop and evolve as we go on. Thinking back to other past years, you know, we did have, after you graduated, the semifinals in Wisconsin, which never actually happened. They never got enough races for a regatta. And so all those teams that qualified for semis but didn't finish high enough to be pre-seeded for finals came out to the lake and didn't really get to sail any regatta at all. And then of course last year was at the Gorge, and I think most people will agree that having the 2 days of practice in extremely trying conditions for people who aren't around there, really strong current and light to medium breeze, the 2 days of practice really paid off. So I guess it really varies from year to year.
So Chris, 18 teams from around the country are sailing today in the semi-finals for Women's Nationals. The top 9 from this regatta go on to race against the 9 that have already qualified. Let's take a look at who these teams are, these 18 teams. What are you thinking in terms of who's going to be coming in that top 5 group, making it in the top 9, and then not quite making it in the top 9 and going home after the semis?
It's going to be a little biased. It's going to be the stronger women's districts, NISA and MESA. I expect all the teams from NISA to qualify pretty easily. I mean, just looking at the way they're ranked, these are some of the toughest teams in the country sailing here in the semifinals. And then over in MESA, you know, you've got St. Mary's and Hobart William Smith probably sailing in pretty easily. The only ones I'm not totally sure about here are Old Dominion and Cornell. I think they're probably going to pick up 7, 8, 9 spots, but I do expect them to qualify as well. We do have the West Coast teams. You know, if it gets breezy, look out for Hawaii. We've got a strong team in Eckerd and some others mixed in there, but they're going to have a tough time beating these powerhouses from NISA and MESA. You know, I think for most of these teams, this regatta is all about qualifying. Results don't matter as long as you're top 9, but I think everyone would agree a great way to set the tone for finals would be to go out and kill it here at semifinals. Plus, it's Chalk Talk. We have to make predictions. So with that in mind, I'm taking the Brown Bears to win the semifinals.
Chris, I'm gonna differ here. I'm gonna take Dartmouth for the win. They sail on a lake all the time. I know it's probably really different, but I think they've got a good shot at this one.
Well, now looking ahead down the line to the championship, we've really got to consider all 27 teams here. Jane, taking a look at this list, who are your favorites and who do you expect to perform well this upcoming weekend?
Chris, looking at the performance of these teams over the last season, it's got to be some configuration of BC, Georgetown, Yale, Stanford, Brown and Dartmouth in that top 5 group. Not to say that other teams outside of those guys can give them a run for their money. It's definitely happened in the past. Any team that puts together the right performance on the weekend has a shot at getting right up into that top 3, and I'll definitely be watching for that. In A Division, I'm excited to see Annie versus Sydney. They've both been having a really strong year, and it'll be great to see them in top performance at this regatta, head-to-head. Yale's Melina Fowler, as well as Emily Dallenbaugh from Brown, also good sailors in Women's A Division, expecting some great performances from them. Looking at B Division, I expect Deirdre Lambert, freshman sensation from Dartmouth, to be starting well. Brianna Provancha backing up at Annie in A division, as well as Morgan Kiss and Emily Billing, both likely, whoever is sailing, probably both of them, to have a strong regatta for Yale. And I think it's interesting when we take a look at the breakdown of these teams. We've mentioned a couple of the same team in A division and B division, and there are a couple of different ways that you can win this regatta or have a great regatta getting in the top 3 or top 5. I always think it's interesting looking at my own experience. In one year, my junior year, I won A division with no first place, but I don't think I got outside of an 8th place in the regatta and averaged about a 4th. So in order to do well, you can kind of play that game, the really conservative regatta, and still do really well. Or in my last year, also won A division, and I actually had a last place in a race, followed that right up with a first place in the next race, which brings your average right down, but you can still do really well. So I think it'll be interesting watching these teams, who has that really consistent, and across both divisions as well, and who might have more of a low scoring, really top performance, maybe a little bit more risky performance, and how that ends up for them. And now for the exciting, the final award is the Quantum Woman Sailor of the Year. Always really exciting to see how this one plays out. And I think, we've got to consider Annie for this. She won it last year. She looks like a shoo-in for co-ed All-American this year, which I believe is a real big feat. I definitely did not achieve that in my 4 years, so hats off to her for that. But we do also know with Annie that she does get into a bit of trouble on the water at times, so that could affect her performance. And I think really when we look at the top contenders for this award, it will come down to nationals performance. I think it always does. You can't say that even if you sail an amazing year of sailing, it still does come down to how you put your performance together at this one regatta. And Sydney, also really seasoned sailor, she's got to be a top consideration for this award as well. We'll have to see how it plays out for them on the water.
Well, I'll tell you, I'm really excited to see the finals and watch it all come down to the end on Saturday. But I am putting my money on Georgetown. Sydney Bolger in A division, Nancy Haygood in B division. Both of these girls are capable of winning their divisions, or at least getting that consistent scoring that you talked about that's so necessary to win nationals.
So for me, I really think it's got to be Yale or BC. It's a really tough one. I guess I wish I knew a little bit more about what exactly the competitors were going to be expecting on the water. I'm not there. I think that plays into it quite a bit. But I think I have got to go with Yale. I saw them recently and I think they're in really good spirits, and as we mentioned, good A division, good B division. I think they can put it together. So good luck, guys.
Well, that's going to do it for us. Don't forget to tune in to 2012 nationals.collegesailing.org for live continuing coverage of the events. And Jane, I'll see you this weekend for our next episode of Chalk Talk Nationals Edition.
Good luck to all teams sailing today and this weekend. You've trained all year, potentially all your 4 years for this, so have fun, enjoy it, and I'll see you this weekend.